So if you guys haven't heard, the My Studio Nerds podcast is one of the best, most transparent podcasts in our space. And I want to react or respond, I guess, to Devon's point here. I'm just going to hit play.
A lot of those kids are using FL, not even kids, grown, like just a lot of people are just using FL Studio. So I'm interested. You know something about your DAW? Your DAW is so like silently
Sorry, by him saying your DAW, he means Ableton.
Huge to me. Or I'm just so removed from the Ableton user that I catch moments where I'm like, oh, this is a DJ that makes music on YouTube and he uses Ableton. And I'm not gonna lie, when I see Ableton users on YouTube, they be huge, like massive. I mean, who is this person? Like, so I just feel like I'm mad removed from like
the
Ableton users
community.
Yeah, Ableton users are just not in my ethos. Or is it that Ableton really has a bigger like market as far as the genre of like EDM and stuff like that, and that's why it's not in my like
I don't know because I don't
world.
So from my perspective, the question to Courtney Taylor, for example, on the My Studio Nerds podcast is, how does Ableton get attention if it's not seen in the forefront or the perceived forefront? And I can basically give him perspective is that Ableton's initial. Actually, let me wait to see what the next point is before I.
For me personally, I just don't see like them marketing or really like platforming much, right? Outside of just the DAW, the program, the devices, and even then, it's not like their first like instinct is to go to like, let's say, a shout out a Decap or a an Eldre,
right? One of their
or even a Reed Stefan.
Shout out to Eldre,
like Reed
Decap,
Stefan is
Reed
one of the
Stefan,
biggest Ableton platformers I've like known since like using it. You know, and again, it's not to say anything about the company, but I think it's just like, I don't know, something strange about them where it's like they just kind of focus on pushing the product and then that's it,
not the person. Can I tell you?
So you guys can watch the whole podcast. I just wanted to pull out that little small bite because it's a conversation around how these audio companies treat content creators. I told them years ago, and I'm not here to I'm not trying to say this from a negative point of view. I'm just giving you guys the timeline. Years ago, we started 2014. Now, back then, there were barely any FL Studio tutorials. NFX Beats was like the only one that I remember really doing, and War Beats, you guys may know him as, doing FL Studio tutorials. And there was another guy, we found him. I think his name was something Media, Red Media, or something like that. I forgot his name now, but there was like 2 people doing it. Like it was NFX. There was other people, but I mean, in terms of what we were actually watching, NFX, and then this guy who would produce on Reason, and he was like, "Come on, man, I'm gonna show you how to play it gold right here, man. We gonna do this shit." He was moving. He was very knowledgeable, but he moved kind of fast, and he was in a whole different DAW, Reason. So it's hard to like translate that to FL Studio. So NFX was our starting point. Okay, now from that point, I started teaching because I was like, back in the day, but when we had pirated versions of FL and all these plugins, I'm like, I have to do good to these companies. I can't just be downloading all this stuff and not doing good to the company. So I flipped the switch and I said, I'm going to make these companies money from now on. And I started talking about different plugins, different plugin companies, how to use it, how to, benefit from it. And that was I'll say the progenitor of, like content around this specific space. Like, I want you guys to understand there was no culture like that back then. There were websites like Future Producers and stuff like that, but there was no real like content creator space where people were just sharing information willingly. It was a lot of gatekeeping back then. Okay. Believe it or not. So I kind of started this chain. I said, I'm just going to change my mindset from trying to take to I'm going to give. And when I flipped that switch, that's when, we were helping so many people. It became addicting. It became one of the best feelings ever. It's like, wow, like this is bigger than money. This is like, I'm changing people in a positive way. And it became very, very addictive to help people. Still is. It's the greatest joy on the planet is to help somebody else, in my opinion, and help them actualize themselves. So as we're doing this over time, we're making these companies millions and millions of dollars, guys. Like it's not even conjecture. It's not a loose fantasy. It is fact. These companies, because I found out the numbers behind the scenes from running my own company. And when I saw what it costs to get just one view on a website, when I saw on Facebook meta ads, I said, wow, it cost the company 50 cents just to get somebody to click a button to go to your website. That doesn't mean they're going to stay on your website. That doesn't mean they're going to like anything on your website. Just to view a video to get somebody to go to your website costs 50 cents per view, per click in that case. And I said, whoa, like I'm sending these companies hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views every single month for free. And I totaled up the value and I'm like, whoa, like, and there was a time where I had an affiliate, FL Studio affiliate link before they took that down. And I saw the back end and I was only getting 10% from that link. Now I wasn't like fiending for it. It was just nice to have type of thing. It wasn't like my whole mission was to push them. It was just like, oh, cool. I get to share in some of the equity. So basically I saw the numbers. I'm like, wait, they're paying me this much. So if you multiply that times 10, they just made this off of me. And this is just the stuff I've been tracking. I haven't been tracking for years, almost probably a decade now. I haven't been tracking that. So imagine a decade's worth of free traffic to your website. Okay, worth millions. Okay, we've generated so many FL Studio creators, and not just myself. I'm not trying to make this about me. I'm talking about Nick Mira, Simon Servita, Jay Cactus. I know I'm going to forget a lot of people, so forgive me. Produced by Jack. I'm sure Ocean even has probably a video about FL LLB. Forgive me, I'm going to say a list. Larry O, how could I not forget Larry O? Navi D, Curtis King, Busyworks Beats, Av McCree. I'm sure MG The Future had a video about FL Studio because I remember him doing the channel rack. I'm sure CMP talked about FL Studio. Just talking about it gets people interested. Bolo, the producer, I'm sure did FL stuff. My point is everybody in the culture that you guys could ever think of. I know I'm missing so many people in the mix, for example. Who's a new dude? Man, I don't know why I'm going blank for some reason. Sorry, Synthit, Chauncey, freaking Rob TMB. Like there's so many people and I'm not trying to like leave people out. I've been Arts, Sicky Beats, Eldre probably did something on FL. I don't know if that's true or not. Forgive me, Eldre, for throwing you in. I'm just thinking of creators. I mean, there's a world of creators, okay, who make content around this FL Studio. Now that my thing that I saw over time was that these companies behind the scenes, and I have a whole story about it. I'm not going to bore you guys to tears about how they treat me behind the scenes. It's really bad, like really bad. You would think the person that drove probably the most business to a company would be treated better, right? But no, that's not the case. So long story short, I just saw how these audio companies were treating the content creators behind the scenes. And what I started a campaign against in 2018 or so was when I saw these same companies that were coming to me, hey, here's this amount for doing a video. Would you like to do it? They would go to other content creators and say, hey, here's an NFR, which means not for retail. We're going to give you this free software. We want you to do all this content worth thousands of dollars, not just shooting it, but the distribution of it. So it's not just getting somebody to make a video and you put it on your website. No, it's getting somebody to make a video and they put that video in front of the audience who are buying audiences. That's a whole different thing than just making a video. So that's two things they're getting out of that for free for an NFR that costs them $0, especially if it's an effect plugin. I could tell you guys now that I make my own plugins, the only thing that really costs server cost is if you have huge libraries, like a contact library, for example. Like you guys can get our free plugin at busyworksbeats.com/sampler. And I think the free library is somewhere around like 5 gigs or so. And so we can, or no, it's 3 gigs or so, or maybe 6 gigs unpacked. I forget now. But the full library is like 15, 30 something gigs. So every time somebody downloads the full version of the sampler, it costs me like $5 to $10. I don't know the exact cost. I'm generalizing here to make a point. I'm way off. I use Amazon AWS. My point is that it costs me money every time they download that large library. Now, if the plugin they're giving us is not a large library above like 5 gigs, it does not cost them anything to give somebody an NFR. And what's even worse is I saw them giving people NDAs to give them an NFR, as if this is such official business. We got to get you to sign an NDA so that you'll keep your mouth shut because we have an embargo until the launch date. And on the launch date, we're going to use your distribution and your expertise and your actual video content, okay, to push their product for free for an NFR. That is stupid and backwards. Okay. That's slavery. That's worse than slavery. And so I saw this behind the scenes and I said, there has to be this cannot go. Because I saw a company, they were offering us thousands per episode of this. We tried to pitch, I think it was Sweetwater on a producer reality TV show. And we were having people bid for this episode and they were willing to pay multi-thousands per one episode of the show, because it's not just about the show. It's the product placement of the Sweetwater products. It's the, challenges where we had the sub pack where it's like, you got to make a beat with the most bass with the sub pack on, or whatever the challenge was at that specific time. It's the, hey, we're going to make beats using the Yamahas and put those in the background, and producers have to make beats only using the speakers in a certain amount of time. So it's all these little challenges. It was a whole producer reality TV show that I executive produced. And we had Universal Audio there. They even brought in their Vault interfaces before the Vault was even a thing. They gave it to our contestants because they understood to market this thing, we got to get with the content creators, because the people behind the scenes are content creators. Ben Lindell, and shout out to Ben Lindell, he's now at In Music, I believe. He came from Pure Mix. For those who know what Pure Mix is, him and Fabio, man, let me find his name. Oh, Fab Dupont, that was his name. It was like, he sounds like he has a French accent, so that's why my brain kind of slipped. But I learned, the beginning of mixing from Ben Lindell. So when I saw him at NAMM and he had me on stage with him at the Universal Audio booth as we did this whole keynote, I was like, wow, this is a full circle moment. You actually taught me how to mix. And he was like, I think he knew that, and he kind of included me in that. I don't know whose decision it was to include me in that Universal Audio keynote, but thank you for that, because my point is saying that when you get people who are from the culture into these companies, they not only grow the company, like for example, you guys might know Tyne. Let me find his name. Sorry, not Rob, my bad. Ricky Tynes, pardon me, Ricky. I don't know, my brain's kind of slipping today. So Ricky Tynes was his name. I used to watch his YouTube channels all the time. And then I hop onto a live stream with Apple doing a company live stream, because we work with Apple, $1 trillion brand. Okay, I work with, just really quick, $1 trillion brand Apple. Now they're worth $4,000 billion brands. Just understand that they're worth 4 trillion. Apple is worth $4,000 billion brands. Okay. So now I can say I've worked with $4,000 billion brands, but we work with $1 trillion company and $5 billion company. So it's Apple, the $1 trillion company, Suno, the $1 billion company, Sweetwater, $1 billion company, Avid, $1 billion company. Who's in Web3? The Near Protocol. Okay, for those who understand what that is, founded by, I believe, A16Z, for those who understand what that is, Andreessen Horowitz. And then you got Razor Music, okay, another $1 billion brand. So we work with the brands, is my point. And in doing so, the content creators who started off teaching the same audience that we're teaching, who went to move into these audio companies like Ricky Tynes and Ben Lindell, for example, they were looking out for me, I assume, in some way. I don't know. Maybe it was just luck of the draw, but I hopped on the Apple live stream with the team, and then I see Ricky, and I'm like, wait. And my brain was like, I know you from. I was like, are you from YouTube? He was like, yeah. And I was like, and my head clicked. I was like, oh, you're Ricky Tynes. And I went to his channel where he announced where he was working for Apple. So it's a small world, is my point. And when people come from this content creator space and then evolve into the company space, they bring the culture with them. And I've noticed that companies that have never started in the content creator space, they look down on content creators in a way. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, they're treating us as lesser than, as if we're free press. That's how they look at you, like you're free press. They'll give you an NFR and tell you there's an embargo and an NDA. Anytime somebody, let me give you guys tips. If you want to be content creators, anytime a company gives you an NDA, run. Do not sign that thing. It's a piece of bull crap. They're just trying to use you for their launch campaign and act like they're just doing you such a privilege of secret trade secrets. Unless you're in like a beta program or something, never sign an NDA from these stupid companies, okay? Secondly, is if they give you an embargo date and they give you some software way ahead of time, don't be a fool thinking that they're doing you a favor. They're using you for their launch campaign. Now, if you don't care about if you want to be a part of the momentum of the launch, like, for example, the MPC is always a great product to be a part of the launch. The launch is always the fun part. It's like, whoa, you got Teddy Riley. It's always it's like a big party when it launches. Other companies, when they launch, they're just using content creators. It doesn't feel like a party. So understand the first thing, never sign an NDA. That is for amateurs of amateurs of amateurs. Secondly, is when it comes to embargo dates, if you want to be a part of the momentum, fine. But if you think that embargo means you're holding some secret for some company and they're just doing you a favor, they're not, okay? The embargo date is just their launch date, and they're using your distribution that you spent years to build trust with. They're giving you $0 and they want access to your entire audience. Understand that they have to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars through Meta to do that same exact thing. Do not underestimate your value. And if I had to give a third tip dealing with these brands, anytime you have to chase a brand, you're losing automatically. if you have to reach out to a brand, you're losing. Okay. Like, and if you have to, what's the word? If you have to like debate if you're going to work with the brand, that's already a no. The point is like, you should know the brand name. You should be like super excited to work with them. And it should be very obvious. You shouldn't be like, okay, company number X, Y, and Z. Should I work with this company? That's when it's a waste of time. Unless you're getting money for it or something, it's just a waste of time. Okay, so those are my 3 rules. If I had to give commandments for content creators working with the brands, I guess what I'm trying to say is though, going back to the My Studio Nerds podcast, is these companies who don't have a piece of the culture in their company, they just treat content creators like they're just press. And so they don't understand how important it is to have a culture. The culture is what creates commerce. Commerce, the definition of commerce is social intercourse, not interchange, not interaction, not engagement, social intercourse. Quite literally, the only way you get social intercourse is if you have a culture that connects. That is what creates commerce. So the people who run the culture run the commerce, and they don't understand this. They think commerce comes from ads. No, ads come from the fact that you're pulling from an existing culture. The culture exists first before the ad. So these companies just don't comprehend it. I've worked with all of them, and they just are, I'm going to be frank with you, they're all stupid. They all do their marketing extremely backwards, and they all think the same thing. And that's the worst part about all these audio companies. But now that we see producers like Help Me Devon, for example, coming up with his Rosetta EQ, his Rosetta compressor, his, what's the new one called? All right, so he has a new plugin called 2-Track Surgeon, and he has another one called like the Uncompressor. That's the one I was thinking of. So 2-Track Surgeon, the Uncompressor, Black Vortex, for example. These are all ideas that came out of him and his team's head because they had to organize to actually become products. And you guys can get the bundle right at his website, Help Me Devon. So the 2-Track Surgeon, he has the Uncompressor, the Black Vortex. He has Rosetta EQ, the Rosetta Compressor, for example. And now that content creators, what they call us, right? They try to belittle us. We're just content creators. That's all we do. No, we're business people who build communities. That's what we actually do. You know, the thing that these companies neglected, the community. What did they say at top companies like tech companies? You know, when a company falls apart, they're like, the culture on the inside was bad. Well, guess what? The community is part of that culture. Even though they don't work for a company, you're serving the community. You're extracting wealth from the community. And you think if you don't deal with the community, that it's just not going to translate into the company. So these audio companies, they don't understand this. All of them. There's not one or the other. All of them are terrible. They're horrendously bad. All of the top ones are horrendously bad how they work with artists and content creators. That's why you have a person behind the scenes like myself, for example, liaison deals, put this play together. That's the stuff that I don't broadcast because you'll see my results. I don't need to talk about it. The main thing is though, it's just, it came to a point where I said, I'm going to be the audio company. Why am I waiting on another audio company when I could just make my own plugins? I can make my own sounds. I can make my own whatever, right? There's no more gatekeeper anymore. And this is the most liberating time for content creators because now we don't have to be worried about what these audio companies are trying to push and their new thing that nobody even cares about because they don't even come to us about how to build the thing, that part. I don't want to make this video seem negative. I guess what I'm trying to say is to answer Devon's initial thought about Ableton and how they're, you know, even just how things are in this space. It's because they don't think of us as a part of their success. They don't correlate the live streams with the fact that Ableton just went up in terms of trust factor, which leads to actual translation into conversion of sales. They don't understand this. There's no way to really measure it deeply. The main thing is, here's what I'll say. I know I'm going around a lot, but the main thing I'll say to audio companies is gone are the times where you guys can think you could just dangle your NFRs over content creators or dangle a couple $100 fee and think that we're going to just jump over mountains for you or even give us a 10% to 30% affiliate link. That's pennies. You should be giving content creators 80%, 100% affiliate links. You know why? Because that sale never existed ever before. So why is your company taking 90+% of a sale that never existed if it weren't for the content creator? That's slavery. Okay. So gone are those days. Now as content creators, it's our time to shine. You guys have Claude Code. You guys have Codex. You guys now have infinite intelligence from any LLM, whether it's Google's Gemma 4, whether it's Man, there's so many things. Hermes Agent, there's OpenClaw, I'm going to make a different video about the stuff I've been building with Claude Code. I have final things I can finally show you guys for music producers and artists. I'll do that in the next video. And there's no more gatekeepers, you guys. Like, you don't need a staff of 1,001 coders anymore. You can literally leverage, like, imagine having 100,000 yeah, 100,000 is probably exaggerating, but truly, it probably is that many. Imagine having 100 PhDs on your payroll, but they work for free. Actually, it's not free. Claude Code is not for free. What am I saying? But imagine you had 100 PhDs that would do anything you asked them to do at any point in time. That's Claude Code. That's Codex. That's agentic AI. And that's the power that content creators now have. So any idea you guys have up here, you can literally turn it into an app. You could turn it into a plugin. You could turn it into a website design. You could turn it into real things. And I'll show you guys use cases in my next video, okay? But I just want you guys to understand, gone are the days where these audio companies are the breakers of the market. No, now it goes right back to the source, which was the culture. I want to thank you guys for watching, and go subscribe to Help Me Devon and the My Studio. Forgive me, I still say My Audio Nerds podcast, but the My Studio Nerds podcast. Peace out, guys.